All right, so here's a quote from juror B37 in the case of the state of Florida versus George Zimmerman. I think George Zimmerman is a man whose heart was in the right place, but just got displaced by the vandalism in the neighborhoods and wanting to catch these people so badly that he went above and beyond what he really should have done. But I think his heart was in the right place. It just went terribly wrong. Still with me at the table, Salamisha Tillett from the University of Pennsylvania, MSNBC contributor Joy Reid, and Heather McGhee from Demos. I gotta say, it did not inspire a tremendous amount of confidence, the interview with the one juror that we have heard from. There seemed to be a pretty intense level of cluelessness broadly. The identification with George Zimmerman, who she called George, and not with Trayvon Martin, seemed to be pretty operative. And then it just made me think about the fact that in any high-profile case, one of the things that screams people out that they know about the case, and then it's like, well, who are the people that don't know about this huge case that happened in their backyard? Right. What does that produce in a jury?
Well, I mean, I question whether or not she didn't know much about the case. I have to be honest with you. I question a lot about this juror, including how she got on the jury, why she was not voir dired away when she said that the protests were riots. I think she knew a lot more than she probably said, but that
she also was very eager in voir dire to be on the jury, which is somewhat rare. Yeah.
Book deal probably not having anything to do with that. You know, and she also had this instant notion from the very beginning that George was just a good-intentioned good guy. Right. She couldn't see beyond George Zimmerman as a good guy and couldn't see beyond Trayvon Martin as a bad guy, or at least somebody who, gosh darn, he sure looked like a bad guy. I mean, there he was walking around in the rain, in the dark, at 7:30 at night during the break in the All-Star game. But I mean, who walks around like that? Right. Well, you know what? Occasionally, black people do, and it is legal.
Right. And my question is, when you see what was sort of going through her head, right? I mean, it gets back to the question that I asked Reverend Jesse Jackson when I think about like what justice is, right? All of those prejudices, all of those assumptions that are apparently, and again, I don't know this woman at all, but based on the text that I have in front of me, that apparently seem to be undergirding her belief system and the way that she perceives this incident, all of those are put there by history and culture and a million different things, right? So the question is, we want to stop future incidents like this happening. Stand your ground laws, concealed carry laws. Those are two places to look at it like concretely in terms of law. What do you think about charges, federal charges for George Zimmerman, which a lot of people are rallying around? Like, is that the answer here?
So I think it's so much broader than this, and I think that Trayvon Martin's parents would say the same thing. I mean, this is, you said, you know, I don't know this woman's heart. Well, the data actually knows all of our hearts, right? We know that the majority of Americans have an anti-black explicit bias. This is a study that was done by the AP right before the election, and an anti-Latino explicit bias, that's around 51%, and that when it comes to implicit bias, the kinds of, you know, firings that our neurons are doing on an unconscious level without us even knowing it, we're up in 80 and 90%, including a plurality of people of color. I often think that racism and racial hierarchy specifically is like the oxygen that we breathe in this country. And some people have worked up a better metabolism for not kind of exhaling it. Right. But in fact, that muscle's really been failed to exercise because we haven't had the kind of civil rights movement in this country since before I was born.
And I think part of what is at least silver lining out of this is seeing the level of energy that is being poured towards things that are direct and concrete. Salamisha Tillett from the University of Pennsylvania, MSNBC contributor Joy Reid, and Heather McGhee from Demos. Thank you all. All right, up next, former New York Governor and Sheriff of Wall Street Eliot Spitzer is here to talk about today's big victory for consumers and big headache for too big to fail banks. And he has, I guess, some other things happening politically with him that I've been meaning to ask him about.